Welcome back. You're watching Newsnight. Now, the Gauteng government is considering using revenue collected from casinos, renewal of motor vehicle licenses and other avenues to pay its 30% share of the e-toll debt. Now, this was revealed during the midterm budget policy statement in the legislature on Thursday. Let's discuss this further. We've got Gauteng Finance MEC Jacob Mamubulo joining us in studio this evening. MEC, thank you very much for your time. Now, over the last few weeks since the Finance Minister delivered the midterm budget policy statement, there's been a lot of questions around how much is actually owed in terms of the debt of the e-tolls. If you could maybe just be transparent with us there before we get into the different details of paying it back.
Well, firstly, let me thank you very much for inviting us, and good evening to all the viewers. Just to build up on what you said, yes, indeed, we delivered a medium-term budget policy statement which provided very comprehensive information and, of course, our strategic outlook moving forward, how we're going to spend the money of the people and how we are going to raise revenue to meet our huge demands and pressures into our budget. And with respect to the e-tolls, firstly, we must celebrate the relief brought by, the announcement by Minister that government will absorb the debt and therefore freeing people from this very unfair burden of e-tolls. But secondly, meaning whatever monies that people were paying will now go back into their households and, of course, support their families. So that for us is an important victory. Now, back to your question. And I think before we even go there, we must thank the residents of Gauteng because all of them were united. We never had a voice that deviated. So that unity is out. Now, with respect to the total amount, you will have seen about 47 billion total debt. We have about 12.9 billion or so to pay, and of course this increases, which is part of our 30%.
Yes.
So we have that obligation of making sure that we contribute to paying the debt as part of the obligations of the rest of government. And our commitment to pay is not a new thing we say. In 2020 February, when we made our detailed submission to national government, we did say we are willing to make a contribution because indeed we also understand that the country has made commitments. We have got the rule of law, we have got investors that are looking at how do we handle our contractual obligations and agreements we have with them. So that's why it was important for us, particularly being the economic hub of the country, to also say, in resolving this matter, we will work with national government. Where we are now, we have announced a hybrid model of revenue generation, meaning multiple sources of revenue to finance the e-toll, the maintenance, plus the expansion of new roads that were meant to be built have not been built. So in that, we say, remember e-tolls were one source.
Yeah.
So if we commit another mistake of the golden goose, what happens when something goes wrong? So that's why we're saying, let's have multiple sources, because in a fast-changing economy, you never know what can happen to this or that, just like e-tolls. So I'd like to say to the viewers, where we are now is just on Monday, I was very privileged to join the delegation of Honorable Premier Lisufi to meet with the Minister of Finance. We have reached a very important agreement that we will conclude a memorandum of understanding between national government led by the Minister and, of course, the province led by the Premier. In that MoU, we will then say, what are those sources of revenue that sits with national government, which we believe will contribute to particularly maintenance of roads and expansion of the road network. Remember Gauteng, the roads link up here, all of them, I can list them all of you, particularly the national roads. It is because more than 60% of goods that goes to our global trading partners, they originate from Gauteng. And when they come back as imports, they first get into the warehouses, storages here in Gauteng before they go to the rest of the country and neighboring provinces. So national government understand these roads in Gauteng are not just because they are in Gauteng, but these roads support and are the backbone of the economy. So that is why in the MoU, we must then say, national government is not dropping and dumping and imposing a 30% debt on the province. No, we are partners. So in this financial year, whilst we have announced the adjustment budget, but at least we do not have to make a charge against the provincial revenue account in this financial year. So I'm appealing that let us allow the MoU negotiations to be concluded, an announcement on the contents. We are an accountable, open, transparent government, and then there's a premier state of the province address very soon, few months, and then there's now. Remember here we're just doing the adjustment. The budget will be coming in March 2023. There from the premier we will detail this is what constitutes the hybrid. These are the sources, and then what is the forecast for each one of them? Yeah. It will give us so much. So we're pleading, we have waited for the announcement since February 2020. It will come, it's urgent, it's imminent, it's soon, and then we waited. So we are appealing that let's give this MoU an opportunity.
Yeah, and it's very important that you have indicated to the viewers that there is a memorandum of understanding in terms of what's to come after the national budget is announced. In the meantime, though, have you discussed within this MoU timeframes? Are you going to see the repayment done within the 2023-year period? Will it go into 2024? What timeframes are you giving yourself as the provincial government to finally put a close to this matter?
Let me say that without going into the negotiations of the MoU, but I think for the benefit of the viewers and of course the residents of Gauteng and the country, one issue I can just indicate, it's in the budget speech, and I can share a bit without causing problems. One is that if you look at the 12 billion plus that we have to pay,
yes,
this is almost a long-term financial instrument that was used to generate the money to give us the tolls. So it means we're not talking short-term payment like here today, 12 billion off. No. Yeah. Financial instruments like bonds, like long-term loans and all that are long-term.
Okay, so there's a payment plan.
So what we are proposing as Gauteng to sit in the MoU is two issues. One is, can national government allow us to spread the 30% payment over a sufficiently good period so that we don't have to we're not under pressure to immediately, have to find the money and affect education, social service, and so on and so on. The other part we're looking at is, if national government perhaps is under pressure, Sanral, to pay the creditors here and now, we can, and it has happened, it's part of the financial instruments that are there. We can then discuss with national government to say, we are part of the democratic government, we are a unitary state. Can you perhaps pay, and then we will repay you over a long period of time, So those are the discussions that we are having on spreading the amount over. And then we're looking at, from ourselves as the province, how much money will we raise per annum to contribute so that everybody can see, we are contributing, we're making a contribution, and we're living up to our commitment. In the speech, you will have seen a sentence that says, we want to raise a revenue estimated at 7.2 billion rands. It doesn't mean, and we're saying, in that there are two sources. One source is to use the current revenue sources, motor vehicle licenses. We're not talking about increasing them, but we're talking about being efficient. the Road Traffic Management Corporation says, due to fraud and corruption and criminal activity, there's an estimated amount of $1 billion that is sitting in the eNCA system, which requires RTMC to recover it, and it belongs to the province. Now, when we talk about increasing our revenue, we mean that type of money is a low-hanging fruit, and we need it to increase our revenue. So that's being efficient. But there are other sources that we are not tapping. If you look at Gauteng, we've got a high concentration of buildings, high-rise buildings. They are very good for advertising. We have never tapped into that. We have got roads that are sitting in very good spaces in terms of, land location, high-value land. And we've got good road networks. We could use that for advertising. So we are not using that method as well. We are sitting with, I was MEC of infrastructure development. We're sitting with a very huge land portfolio. And every land in Gauteng, because we're a small, it's almost prime land. Can we use our assets to partner with the private sector to raise revenue? So I'm trying to show you that there are current sources of revenue. There are those sources that we are not exploring at all. We are talking about a provincial bank. Some of these land parcels can be used to recapitalize the bank. And then in that, we will then be able to enter into partnerships with the private sector. So the hybrid model talks to multiple sources of revenue that we are going to explore. As the Premier said, and this is my last point, as the Premier said, whatever sits in the hybrid, whatever that we get, we must consult with the people. There are already people who are calling, and I mustn't raise expectation. I'm just showing you that even members of the public are giving us advice. They are calling. Somebody said to me, MEC, why don't you have a lottery in Gauteng, for example? So we also need suggestions and views as to what can sit in the hybrid model. We must go consult people. The people might say, don't touch land. The people might say, no advertising on the roads. People might say, they might give us ideas. So Premier has directed that our model of hybrid, multiple sources, without e-tolls, must be supported by the people. It must be sustainable. It must be innovative. So that after 3-4 years, we don't have a crisis in one of the sources. So that's where we're going. So allow us to conclude, allow us to consult, allow us to get views from the people about what could be done.
MEC, the reason I asked about the debt in our initial part of the conversation is OUTA, the civic organization, says that there has been a lack of transparency when it comes to that debt, and the one that you have presented to government as 47 billion is highly inflated, and they're just wondering about that actual figure and asking for more transparency. They did submit a written letter, if you will, to Parliament earlier in the week around that. Why would they be having doubts around the actual debt figure, and why would it be inflated if that's the case?
Well, let me say that I think for us as a province, and of course let me also acknowledge, that OUTA is one amongst many that have also constituted the voices in the province. But really for us, and this is a question that's part of the MoU, and that's why we want an MoU. And let me clarify that. That's why we want an MoU, precisely so that things are in writing, things are open, transparent, there are no sealed, closed, black boxes on any issue. When I'm not here, when Premier Lesotho is not there, when Minister Kotongwana is not here, generations in future should be able to say, this is what they've agreed upon. So I think whatever that any stakeholder is raising about inflated prices, what we need is let it be written so that we have consistency. So to be speculating that there's too much fat built into the price, it's actually much more lesser and all that, I think let's not create expectation and sensation that this will be reduced or it will be increased. What is important is let's get things written. And of course, if there's information that says it should be less, for us it reduces the 30%
Yes.
obligation. So I think the most important issue is we have also raised the issues about openness, transparency, and all that. So I don't think there should be a problem there. For the residents of Gauteng, what is important is the following. There will not be a burden on education, social services, and other services in the province. We are not going to bring back e-toll by backdoor of any kind. We are going to look at efficiencies in our revenue collection. That's improvement. We are going to look at new alternative sources of revenue. And we also, will be tapping into what are the resources that national government is sitting on that we believe can also be used. To that extent, the residents should be comfortable and happy that, we will not go into burden them again.
Yeah.
Because how come that these roads that people from Malawi, Limpopo,
Yeah.
Eastern Cape, they pass here, they don't pay, only the people of Gauteng have to
Yeah.
pay.
Yeah.
So we can't bring back another unfair burden on them.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to assure them that in our approach, we're clear. This country has a very big responsibility for social services, supporting the poor, the vulnerable, and in whatever that we do, we shouldn't burden them further.
Yeah. And you see, that's a very important point that you raised there, in that consumers won't be paying for e-tolls in some backdoor fashion, and there will be new sources of revenue for the province. Tell us a little bit about Sanral and their debt burden and their revenue issues that they've had. They have been very vocal about the fact that they've struggled. And how does this impact them, if in any way?
Well, I think I'd like to say to the viewers that whilst the matter of Sanral obviously could be of great interest to the viewers at this point, but I'll plead that, I think Sanral is much more better placed to go into deeper details and much more clearer position about their real state of finances. So I think it will be better, and also perhaps when the MoU is done and we present it, it will be able to raise a number of much more clearer issues.
Yeah. Let me just clarify. So the reason I ask is because they've indicated in their results and financial statements that part of their issue is the whole back and forth around the e-toll system. And that's why I'm asking about them in particular, in that how are they fitting into this mix, if at all?
Yeah, so you'll have seen that Minister in the medium-term budget policy statement he made in Cape Town has also said government is going to make an advance towards Sanral, which I think will actually help. And so I think to that extent, it actually say, national government is trying its best to also make sure that Sanral is also assisted. I think the sad part, though, it's just, the e-toll model, from day one it was conceptualized, has not raised any significant amount of money.
Yes.
And the risk about it, the issue about it is they didn't also do proper risks about, so how are you going to deal with challenges if the revenue is not flowing in? And conceptually, they put the e-toll exclusively on people of a province. So the e-toll has been, and I think what you're saying, you're quoting the former CEO of Sanral, Matlozoma, because he did say they need the matter resolved. So that's in the public space. And I think it's precisely because the e-tolls have not been meeting their targets to raise revenue. Even when those targets were revised downwards, they were just not, giving enough cash flow. So I guess the point you are trying to look at is how has this impacted Sanral? But as I said, Sanral is a national entity, and I think it will be even much more beneficial to the viewers if Sanral was to say, this is what e-toll what I call a heroic failure, you know, a failure with good intentions.
Yes.
I guess
Indeed,
those who,
MEC.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if they say this is how it impacted us.
And let's get back to the residents. There are many who did follow the law and were paying their e-tolls, you being one of them, as well as you indicated in our off-air discussion. What happens to that money? Do they get it back, or do we just move forward with the plans that you will be initiating with National Treasury on resolving the debt?
Yeah, if you'll see in our statement, when we talk about the MoU and the issues, these are matters that we need to close together with national government, and we will look at that. And I think, I think I've been playing around the issues of the MoU. I'm worried I might overstep, but I think that matter, it's a matter that is precisely at the center of the MoU as to, so how do we deal with that issue? So it's a matter that must be talked to. We can't, close it and not talk about it. So for me, I'll say to the residents of Gauteng and of course to the people, let's wait for this MoU. It will give us a much more better clarity, because it doesn't have to say, where will money come from? Do we know? We don't know, and all that, when there's an MoU process. What will happen to this one? What will happen to that one? Let's wait for a process that will, just like we said, there will be an announcement on e-tolls. It has been made.
Yeah. Just
like we said, there's an MoU. The details will come. You did ask how long did we give ourselves, and on the MoU, I guess those details will be finalized by the team, but we never at any given point wanted to prejudge any process before it reaches its conclusion.
MEC, we have run out of time, but it would be remiss of me not to ask you, are you confident that you as a department have allocated sufficient resources to make sure that Gauteng residents are safe during the festive period, whether it be via policing, hospital resources and the like?
If you look at the budget that we have, the adjustments we've made, we have adjusted our budget and have given community safety quite a substantial amount of money, because Premier Lissouf has clearly said, crime, lawlessness, it's our big issue. And people thought when we talk about this issue, we were going to fund it in some undefined long term to come. Right here, we are giving money for more personnel. We're giving money for drones, which are an eye in the sky, which will work with the eye on the ground to look all over. So we are allocating money to that. We're allocating money, you'll have seen, to vehicles.
Yes.
Because it doesn't help to have criminals, and then there are no resources to run around. So the point I'm trying to make is, I think the residents of Gauteng should be comfortable that there are more resources given to community safety, to leverage smart technologies, the human and the artificial intelligence, to be able to, give the criminals, just
hard time.
So to descend on them and to combat crime. And you'll have seen in our budget, gender-based violence and femicide is item number 1, which we started with in the speech. You'll also see, out of the money that we have, 1.5 billion we adjusted to department, 1 billion go to the Department of Health. So that tells you, because in the statement yesterday, we said we are running the biggest health system in the country and to a large extent in the continent. So there's 1 billion going into health. So we're setting up to answer your question is, we are doing our best to make sure that, during the festive period, our health system is good, our law enforcement capacity, and I'm sure you're going to see more robust, visible policing and engagements moving forward.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much, MEC, for your time. And it's a very important point that you raised there about GBV, given that in the last 3 months there were 10,000 rapes that were recorded, according to Minister Bheki Cele. But thank you very much for joining us in studio this evening. That is Gauteng Finance MEC Jacob Mamabulo joining us this evening to talk about the e-tolls, but also in the end there assuring Gauteng residents that you are safe, health-wise, policing-wise, anything-wise during the festive season.